Good day, I'm Junior Researcher Adam Southgate, and today I will be presenting to you the interview I conducted with the entity that was once known as Ddraig and David. I'd appreciate that all hunters please subscribe as to not miss any future announcements, and if you enjoy the lectures and also find them informative, please like the video and click the bell to ensure you do not miss any future videos. I would also be very happy to hear your thoughts, views and stories of your own interactions with the monsters of the spheres in the comment area of this video. Also, I'm always ready to answer any questions you may have, and please share these videos with any hunters you feel would benefit from them. So, to begin, as always, we'll start with our general announcements. Firstly, we can open with some good news. The breed's farm that had become overrun with a flesh lice infestation has been cleansed thanks to the hard work of our diligent hunters. Of the 30 hunters who participated, 22 managed to survive the operation, with only half that number requiring Pinocchio prosthetics to replace lost limbs. This is a fantastic result considering the large amount of the entities that needed to be eliminated. Of the hunters who sadly perished during the contract, we've offered their children full scholarships in our new Early Hunter program that has been specifically tailored to prepare these young minds to guard against the threats they will face. Surprisingly, 2 survivors were found by the hunters on the farm. The first was a UPS driver who hid within one of the parcel lockers in the back of his van. He has been placed on the custodial staff of the order. But more amazingly, a solitary piglet somehow managed to escape the millions of flesh lice that ate his parents running into the nearby woodland. He approached the hunters shortly after their arrival on scene and immediately ingratiated himself to them. He has since been adopted by the Newport Order office under the name of Ham Sum, where he is doted upon by the staff. Secondly, a strange occurrence in the town of Abu Vale. Within a new-build home at around 8:47 p.m, a family get-together consisting of 12 individuals was tragically interrupted by an entity of the entropic sphere. The gamekeepers sent to assess the situation have marked it down as a possible Umbra D, however, they did leave a note saying how they were not entirely happy with this conclusion. The problem is that any entropic entity above the typical benign spirit requires a death to form, and the home in question has had no known such incident take place within it. Of the 12 persons within the home at the time of the incident, only 2 managed to escape with their lives, the first becoming paralyzed from the neck down, while the second escaped with only a paralyzed left arm, both missing their shadow where their bodies had been affected. Interviewing the 2, we found that while the family were drinking and eating together from a buffet, the fuse box was tripped due to an unknown reason. Each member of the family under the age of 50 immediately reached for their phone's built-in torch to light the room, but after doing so they found that 3 of the people had already fallen to the floor, lost to the entity. We were hoping to switch the fuse box back on in the house to make quick work of the entities, however with the box being within the kitchen at the back of the house, this will be a tall order. If this is an outbreak of Umbra D, then at current there should be 11 instances within the home if you include the original entity, all of which will need to be dealt with. Along with this, we would like the hunters who take on the contract to also establish how this incident took place within this particular home. Typically, Umbra D form when someone is locked within a dark place for a prolonged period of time, long enough for death to occur, which seems unlikely in this case, though all the other evidence does point to this specific type of entity. We require a team of at least 5 hunters for this contract of journeyman rank or higher. Those interested can apply via the bounty board at their local order office, or they can contact me directly through the comment section of this video. Sunday the 4th of January, 12:45 p.m. I made my way down the newly installed lift to the bottom of the old coal mine. On the way down, I could still see the impressions of claw marks made by the dragonkin as they climbed up and down the shaft. Work had been going around the clock to convert the mine into a new base for the storage and protection of the dragon, and as I made my way through the newly reinforced tunnels, I could hear the echoes of men hurriedly setting up crossbeams. The maze-like structure of the mine had been preserved to add a second layer of defense in case another attack came. However, it did make navigating a pain if you weren't familiar. All at once I was hissed at by Dragonkin, who thankfully, now under the control of the new dragon, had agreed to the cessation of hostilities. It took a good 20 minutes to find my way to the central chamber, even with the new electric lighting that was recently installed. As I entered the vast chamber, I found the dragon lazily stretching out its wings as they pushed against the sides of the walls. Even with the enormity of the room, it could not fit the dragon's whole size. It bowed its head to me as it noticed my approach, the heat from its breath being pushed out of its nose enough to sting my exposed hands and face.
Junior Researcher Southgate, it is Ddraig Newydd. Good to see you.
I'm pleased that you're happy at my arrival.
These Adelator builders seem reluctant to speak to me.
You have to excuse them. It's procedure. We don't really know anything about you. We're not even really sure what to call you.
Ddraig Newydd, the new dragon, for that is what I am.
But on that point, and I mean this question respectfully, are you a new dragon? The body is still the same. All that changed was that you gained the experiences of David.
If you mix flour and water together to make bread, do you still have those things once you hold the loaf in your hands?
I see your point, but that's with physical things, objects that you can touch. We're talking about the intangible, the mind, memory, and emotion.
But they are still Quirienthal, real. Even if they cannot be touched, they have a tangible effect on those who experience them. A man will change throughout his beweed life through the accumulation of experience. So is the man in his youth the same as the one on his deathbed?
Okay, I think I understand your point. But on the subject of experience, how much do you remember of Ddraig and David's lives?
I, Cofio, remember more of my father David's life than he did himself.
What do you mean more than he remembered?
The Gulf memory of a dragon is far more clear than that of a man.
Ddraig Newydd closed his colossal eyes as if summoning a memory.
I remember him floating within his mother's growth womb. I remember how he gave his food to his dog as his parents argued. And I remember how afraid he was as he stood before Ddraig.
That's incredible. But what of Ddraig? We know so little about him. All we really know is that he was locked within his dormant state after the battle with Ddraig.
He was less kind. He loved his Bobloeth folk, but only as a king would. He was as rigid as iron and burned as hot as fire, punishing any failure. I still feel his rage within me, but tempered by David.
What of his early life, before he became the dragon?
He was the same, only less so. He was given a piece of what remained of Arthur's kingdom, but without the wisdom of Merlin. Beset on all sides, he and the other crown bearers made a deal that changed their forms forever.
Once they became dragons, what were their relationships like? We know they banded together against certain threats, but they also seem to have fought against each other.
Becoming dragons strengthened their Iwilis I Dominithu, will to dominate, and each saw themselves as Arthur's true heir. Gwrthdaro. Conflict was inevitable, but they always came together when outsiders came. That is until Ddraig Newydd.
We have a rough idea of what happened there, but I would like to hear it in your own words. As I stared up at him in all his power and might, I would swear that he truly looked pained at this request.
They had been fighting against each other for so long that they had anger fatigue, forgotten that they were one people. Each began to see those they rule over as their people, and those ruled by the others as those dragons' people. When the next invasion came to the island, they found not a unified force, but a fractured, bickering bunch of fools. Ddraig Newydd was the first to be attacked, and she came to the realization that all her people would be destroyed if something wasn't done, and so she bowed.
Did she call for aid before she surrendered?
To the great shame of my father, Ddraig and the other dragons, yes, many times, but none answered the call. The anger of dragons takes centuries to cool, and none could see past their Imri son rivalry long enough to intervene.
Considering the battle between Ddraig and Ddraig Newydd, that must be a difficult weight to bear. The dragon lifted its head at this, but if it was in surprise or anger, I could not say.
I bear no responsibility for the actions of my dad, father, even if I find those actions regrettable.
I apologize if my question caused you distress. We simply wish to learn.
It is fine, my Crowan. Skin is thick enough to bear it.
I'm glad to hear it. Now, if you wouldn't mind, we would like to test the dragon's decree. We've seen you use it upon the dragonkin, but not upon a human.
I would rather not. Researcher Southgate, I find the idea gothy thus troubling.
I can understand why, and I greatly appreciate your reluctance. However, we will only be using a willing participant who is fully informed. Along with this, we will never ask you to use this ability outside of testing it for the purposes of research.
I will cite Sinio, acquiesce. However, if you deceive me and attempt to use it for ill.
He left that sentence on that word as if to let my own imagination fill in the gap within that threat. I nodded to him and called in the volunteer. This is Stephen. He's one of our security staff working for the Order. He has volunteered for this test and fully understands what it entails. Ddraig Newydd narrowed his eyes at me, a truly unnerving sight. He then turned his attention towards Stephen, a retired hunter who joined our security team after an injury made hunting too difficult.
I would like to ask him a question, Researcher Southgate, that he will have to answer truthfully.
That is absolutely fine.
Are you security staff member Stephen participating in this test of your own free will?
Yes, I believe I am.
After his response, Ddraig Newydd seemed to relax again, letting out a long exhale that quickly heated the room to the point of being uncomfortable. Good. Since we've established that everyone is happy here, I'd like to request that you, Ddraig Newydd, command you, Stephen, to walk towards the left side of the room. At the same time, I want you, Stephen, to attempt to walk to the right side of the room. After completing the test, Stephen relayed how, although he wanted to walk towards the right, his body would only walk towards the left. Interestingly, he described it less like someone controlling your body and more like the feeling of being drunk, where your body's actions are out of step with your mind. We continued these experiments for the next 30 minutes until finishing. Thank you both for aiding with this research. Stephen, you're free to stay or leave while I continue the interview. Stephen, somewhat out of breath at this point, chose to return to the barracks within the base. I wanted to ask if it's the same with the Dragon King. They were fighting against us until you called to them, and now well, to be frank, they're downright helpful, even aiding with the construction.
When I give a groch imin order to a man, their body obeys, but their mind remains free. They can disagree with an order even if they have to follow it. It is different with the Dragon King. When I tell them to do something, they will always fully agree with the command, even if they did not before it was given. It is a terrible power.
That's a heavy burden to bear. So, how many times have you given these commands?
Only once. I told them that they must protect mankind as it is.
Ddraig Newydd's expressions were difficult to read most of the time, but the look of regret was very obvious. Finally, I wanted to ask what your intentions are going forward, both for yourself and with Wales in general. A big fear of ours was that if Ddraig ever awakened, he would begin a war to reclaim Britain.
Thankfully, I am not my father, and I understand how foolish that would be. As for myself, I would like to learn more of this world. I know all my father David knew, but he never left Wales. I would also like to learn of the spheres. My knowledge is nearly 2,000 years old.
And why specifically the spheres?
Because, Junior Researcher Southgate, I would like to help you and the Order.
Our interview was cut short at this point, as more senior researchers wished for time with him. I have relayed all of this information to the High Druid herself to peruse, as the idea of having a dragon on our side would be extremely beneficial. However, not all is good, as the KSG, or Knights of St. George, cannot be allowed to know of the dragon's awakening, or its new location. The reason for this is twofold. The first is for the same reason a superpower does not want a smaller nation to possess nuclear warheads. They have no idea what they may do with them. And the second is due to a far older, more fringe faction of the KSG, which would love to kill a dragon just as their founding saint is said to have done. Things have definitely become more interesting, but also more complicated for us going forward. But that will be all for today, with Arthur's might and Merlin's wisdom. Thank you.